Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for episode 2 of this 4-part SD Times Live micro webinar series on the 4 pillars of observability. I'm Dave Rubenstein, editor-in-chief of SD Times. And if you missed episode 1, which is available now on demand in the Learning Center on sdtimes.com, we discussed snapshots as one of the big benefits of snapshots in particular, and agile observability in general, is that you can adapt your observability in real time without requiring code changes or redeployments. So with us today is Liran Haimovitch. He's the co-founder and CTO of observability platform provider Rookout. And how you doing, Liran? Good to be with you today.
Good to be with you as well, David. It's great being here again.
Yeah. So today's episode, we're going to kick it off by looking at 4 important use cases. So why don't you take it away and let's discuss those use cases.
Sure. So as you so eloquently put it, we're seeing snapshotting revolutionizing the world of observability. We're seeing that developers are finally getting a unique tool that is tailored to their needs. But we're also seeing a bigger movement around making observability more reactive, more proactive, rather than just being static, as it is mostly done today. And I've heard some people compare it with the experience of working with ChatGPT, where when you give a prompt, when you give a question, when you give a command, things don't always work out the way you expect them to. And with traditional observability, that's it. You give a command, you get the data, and it's very hard to move forward from here. While with live observability, it's more of a feedback loop. You give a command, you give a prompt, you get some piece of data, and then you can analyze it and give another piece of data. Move up, move down, zoom in, zoom out, and you can adapt the data you're collecting based on your needs in real time as the situation evolves, as different problems crop up. They're working on different features, and throughout the days, you can use it time and time again to ask and answer different questions. And as you mentioned, there are quite a few use cases for that. And the first one, which was kind of the core use case of Lookout, is what we like to call non-breaking breakpoints. It's essentially about getting the loved and traditional debugger experience, where you attach to a process running on your machine and select any line of code, and the machine stops there, and you get a stack trace, you get the local variable values, you know exactly where the process is. So non-breaking breakpoints give you that experience, but they give you that experience in the cloud. They give you that experience with distributed systems. They give you that experience at high scale, at high throughput, and in a production grade tool, which means you get the reliability, availability, performance, security, and compliance you would expect in your performance environments, which means first and foremost, the application doesn't stop and the breakpoint doesn't actually break the application. So that's kind of think about it. You can select any process, any application you have running anywhere in the world, in any data center. You instantly get the source code loaded based on what's running right there, right now. And by clicking on that line, by adding that non-breaking breakpoint, the next time that line is going to be executed, you're going to get those snapshots we've discussed, and you're going to see exactly the state of that application right now. And there are so many things you can do with that. You can know, why is this line of code being executed? Is this if being taken? What's the value of these variables? How do I fix this bug? What input did that user send, and why is it messing up my system? What's being read from the queue? Anything you would want to know about the code, you can just instantly get it with a click. And I think that's the first use case we've focused on at Rookout.
Mm-hmm.
But over time, we've evolved to add quite a few layers on top of that, as we try to make the platform more agile and suit an even broader set of needs.
Mm-hmm. So I know the second use case we talked a little about in episode 1, which basically we determined that logging sucks. So the second use case I know is about live logging and dynamic log verbosity. So why don't you address that?
Yeah, so as we all know, I keep saying that log sucks, and I think I keep saying that because I keep hearing it. but logging definitely sucks. And one one of the things that suck the most about logs is that after we spend so much time and effort writing them and optimizing them and pushing them anywhere we want, we end up disabling most of them. We end up disabling them in due to verbosity levels. We have to say from this verbosity level and above, we're going to get the logs. It can be error, it can be info, depending on the system. But everything below that, we just can't afford. We can't afford to spend the CPU time writing it. We can't afford ship the network cost for shipping it. We can't afford processing it, and especially we can't afford storing it because storing and indexing logs is so expensive. Now the thing is, that's a very primitive way to say you're taking, you're crossing some red line somewhere. Everything that's air and above, I want to keep. Everything below, I I I drop. And the real world is shifting way too fast. Maybe I'm just now going back to an old component and relaunching it, and I want more insights. Maybe I'm launching a new component, and I want to look into that. Maybe some customer is a VIP customer and is having some issues, and I want to get more logs for that customers. So the world is way more complex than saying I want everything above that and drop everything else. And that's kind of what we've built with live logging. It's about enabling software engineers to define in real time what they need. And it can be around verbosity, it can be around component, it can be around the specific customers they want to focus on, or other elements. And then in real time, you instruct the logger what to collect. So you're no longer boxed to those prefixed. Every single individual, every single engineer within the company is empowered to say what they need and turn on additional loggings. And not only does it provide you more agility, it can also be a huge cost savings because we know that 90 some percent of the logs are never used. And people keep sending them and keep paying for them because they're worried they're not going to be there when they need them. And by being able to turn it off and on and off dynamically, you get much more control, much more flexibility at a much lower cost.
Right. And you don't get overwhelmed by pages and pages of logs that may not be relevant now, as opposed to when they were discovered.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Now,
Good.
the third use case, which you may be familiar with, is live metrics. Live metrics is again a form of, when you look at metrics, then you add those basic metrics, request per second per endpoint, and then you can get some set of dimensions. You can get it per server, per region, per endpoint, whatever, but it usually stops there. It's very tedious to instrument specific parts of the business logic with metrics, and even more challenging, again, those needs change. If you're now launching a new feature, or debugging a feature, you might want tons of metrics for that feature, but you don't want to spend the time to instrument it. You definitely don't want to pay for it day in, day out, because metrics can also cost quite a bit. And so with metrics, we take kind of the concept we've discussed around non-breaking breakpoints and essentially instantly turn any line of code into a metric counter, into a metric summer, into a gauge. And all of a sudden, you get instant metrics. Based on your needs, you can get new metrics. Let's say you have some metric around errors and you have 3 error paths. You can instantly create 3 new metrics, one for each error path, and know which one of them is generating the errors, or maybe it's even a fourth one you didn't even think about. So, and by getting this flexibility, by being able to create new metrics to adapt to the performance you're working on, to the endpoints you're working on, to the business logic that's bothering you, you get that much more granularity, again, at a very low cost, both time and money.
Mhm. Fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to call overtime, and we're going to go into overtime so we can look at the fourth use case, which is live profiling. So I could talk a bit about that.
So now, when you think about profiling, there are actually two things. First, traditional profiling is very heavy duty, and it's no longer relevant for the way a system operates today. But even more so, we've seen that traditional profiling is very CPU focused, while most of our customers we found are way more latency focused. CPU is not as much trouble as it used to be, but the user experience is super important, and latency is what makes the business tick. This has become the key metric. And using live profiling, we allow engineers to do with a click of a button that tedious task of adding a couple of timers, subtracting them, and printing it, which we've all done thousands of times in our careers, and do that with a click of a button. So you don't have to write code, and especially you don't have to redeploy and wait for that to get to production or staging or performance environment or wherever it is you're buttering. You can just set a couple of timers and see the difference. And we even had a whole bunch of nice features on top of that. We graph it out for you, so you have a very clear insight right out the gate. We allow you to correlate breakpoints not only within the same functions, not on time steps, not only within the same function, but across functions and even across microservices in many instances, so that you can say, I got this request somewhere. How long does it take until I finish the database processing? How long does it take until I get the queries for the database? It might be a query of 3 services, and we can do that for you. We can tell you how long do things take in a much better approach than just trying to track CPU or sprinkle timestamps all over the place.
Great. All right, so we're about out of time. Liran Haimovich, co-founder and CTO at Rookout, thanks again for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Mm-hmm.
And if folks want to hear more, then they should check out the Rookout blog. We've always interesting stuff there. Earlier this week, I posted about Diablo 4, but that's kind of off topic. Today, we've just also created a blog post around this topic, specifically around the live observability and the many use cases it has.
Fantastic. All right, so thanks to Rookout for sponsoring this micro webinar series, and thanks to our attendees for loyally coming in and viewing us as we do these things. So until next time, I'm Dave Rubenstein, editor-in-chief of SD Times. So long for now.